Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Sports and Life with Cameron Datsker, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, everybody. Yeah, Elvis weekend. We're gonna talk about the life and times of Elvis Presley. Hello, who's this? Welcome.
Hey, this is Elvis tribute artist Rick Torres.
Well, hello, Rick Torres. How are you?
Very good, very good. Happy birthday to Elvis.
Yeah, happy 80th. Now, you're an Elvis impersonator from. You're from the Bay Area, right?
Santa Clara, California.
Okay, you're right by the theme park. Famous Great America.
Yeah.
Right by Great
Yeah,
America.
I got Great America. I got Great America to my right, and the new stadium straight ahead.
Oh, the new, the 49ers play. Levi.
Yep, yeah, the new Levi Stadium. Yep.
Levi Stadium out there. Anyway, what I was going to mention to folks is that you do Elvis. Why Elvis?
Why Elvis?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I actually started performing. I did a lot of different types of performing, but Elvis was always just something that kind of stirred in my soul. So back in 1997, October to be exact, a friend of mine was turning 4 years old. I decided, you know what, I'm going to do something fun because she used to like when I sang Elvis. So I got the worst Elvis suit you ever saw in your life and the worst wig. And I got up on stage and I performed 6 songs with a band, and everybody just went wild. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So here I am many years later, thousands of shows later, you know, a lot of great experiences.
Right. And now when you see Elvis, what do you see with Elvis? Why is Elvis so popular now that he's been dead? What? God, it's going to be, you know, you think about it. I think it's like 38 years or something like that. And it's unbelievable that Elvis is more alive now. It's unbelievable. You know, all his music.
Well, I think he was very iconic, and I think that his popularity, of course, when he was alive, was amazing. You know, and people that obviously it transcends time because I've actually done shows for people as young as 3 and 4 years old who love Elvis.
Wow.
I think he's just something that will always transcend time. You know. 100 years from now, we'll probably be still listening to his music. You know, I think he just, you know, on top of creating rock and roll, he created an entire culture. So it's kind of a testimony.
Maybe you want to explain to people, you know, when you look up Elvis Presley, and, you know, we talked about Andre Crouch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we talked about, you know, Man in the Mirror that he put together with Michael Jackson.
Right.
When one other thing I was going to mention, Rick. So, you know, you were talking about Elvis. And his music. What is the most popular song that you do that people want to hear?
Well, I would have to say it's probably some of the, you know, the older. It kind of ranges. It really depends on the person because I always get amazed with. I do about 370 of Elvis's songs, believe it or not, and I'm standing on a rock staring at the mountain because he did 10,000 more, you know. So, but I would say probably the most popular song is like Don't Be Cruel, All Shook Up, and I get a lot of requests for Elvis's last song that he ever performed, which was Unchained Melody.
Oh, my darling, I've hungered for your kiss alone, lonely time. And time goes by so slowly.
else he did? For I have my guests coming in, but I wanted to explain to them that Elvis did a song with James Brown. Can you imagine James Brown? They're going to release it, and it was called Heat. It's going to be released this year with James Brown and Elvis Presley.
That's gonna be
all on one album.
That's going to be super.
That was a
Wow.
Yeah, that was something I found out. It was really interesting. We're going to try to play that soon. It's going to be a release song. So anyway, we're going to get your music, but what I want to mention is get people out there, young people, to know about Elvis. So we want to give a little quick thing, and then we're going to go to our artists. We got an artist here, then you, and then we got a big show tonight. Elvis Aaron Presley birthday. So what I was going to mention is
with 2 A's, not one.
yeah, Elvis. Well, Elvis, it's funny. He
With
had a
2
twin.
A's, not one.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. He had a twin.
Yep, Jesse Aaron.
Yeah, he had a twin, and
Jesse Garrett.
Elvis had a
Jesse
twin.
Garrett was
Oh, yeah?
a twin brother.
Yeah, twin brother, and it was really interesting because when he did nothing, a hound dog, it was funny because the twin.
Nothing but a
was
hound dog.
Yeah, the twin was supposed to be part of this career. And it's an amazing story. So Elvis Presley was born January 8th, 1935.
Wow.
In Toluca, Mississippi. And his parents would get spit on, and because Elvis was doing Ethel Waters. You remember, Ethel Waters was a great gospel singer. And it was interesting because Elvis's family lived by, one of the family of the Pointer Sisters, all from Mississippi. Very interesting. And so anyway, Elvis' parents were Vernon and Gladys, and he always talked about his mom. And Graceland is his mom. You know that, right? About Graceland? Graceland was about Gladys. And
That's right.
And it's a whole thing when you go to Graceland. Have you been to Graceland?
Well, I'm going to be heading out there in May this year.
Very interesting place. We're going to do a show from there. We're going to be going to Graceland, and I think we're going this year, July.
Oh, that's gonna be nice.
We're going to do a live show in Graceland. So it'll be my first time that I ever did a show from Graceland. And and we're gonna have Elvis's girlfriend on. So Elvis, one of the ladies he dated, she's gonna be 80.
You're gonna have Ginger on there.
Yeah, Ginger's supposed to come on, and you'll check out for me. One other thing was Elvis is the king of rock and roll, and in fact, people just call him the king. And like James Brown was when I grew up with James Brown and Elvis. That was it. And if you didn't hear James Brown, it was like those in that days, man. That's what it was. And Elvis moved to Memphis when he was only 13. Then, and then in 1954, he recorded his first album. Can you imagine? He recorded his first album. He was just a truck driver. You know that, right?
Yeah,
Elvis was a truck driver. He was a truck driver.
Yep, he was a truck driver.
He was a truck driver.
He actually drove a Ford F-150 for an electrical company.
Yeah, that's true. And he know what he made? You know what Elvis made in those days?
What's that?
He made $300 a week in those days. That's all he made. And then when he got his first contract, when his first song came out, that was the first time Elvis made over $300.
Wow.
Because then he became, in those days he was on Dick Clark. Dick Clark's had a show. And what I was going to say is the first song he recorded was Sam Phillips, Sun Records in Memphis. And then one other thing I was going to mention is later shows that we're going to do Scotty Moore, who was with Elvis for many years. They live in Vegas. Bassist Bill Black, and I know Joe Esposito is listening to us on the internet and all over the world. And Presley, by the way, was was the blues. The blues of he said, I'm between the blues and I'm between gospel. Mm-hmm. That's what Elvis said. It was very interesting stuff about Elvis. So anyway, that's a little about Elvis. We're gonna get some of your music in the hour. We'll play it. And what now? The songs that you picked. Which ones did you pick?
Oh, to sing for you guys for the examples. Let's see. Well, we did "Don't Be Cruel," which is probably one of Elvis's, like I said, most requested songs. "Love Me Tender," of course, which is the most requested song for weddings.
Right.
Blue Hawaii is definitely way up there. People love that song, Blue Hawaii, any time of the year.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Unchained Melody was one of the songs I picked. And I think I picked Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah, that was
because that's the most. That's like the most requested ending song. What I do with my shows is I allow the customer to custom design their show. So they go to my site, they pick all the songs that they want. Mm-hmm. They pick all of I have 18 different performance suits. All of my suits are all made by VK Enterprises, who made Elvis's suits.
Right.
So
VK
it's a
Enterprises,
very genuine show, and then they pick the suits and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I was going to mention to people that VK Enterprise also did David Bowie. They designed for David Bowie and also James Brown.
Who shares a birthday with Elvis.
You know, James Brown, all by VK.
That's great.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Small
That's
world.
cool. Yeah.
You know, it's an interesting tidbit for you guys. Speaking of David Bowie, you know the song "Golden Years"?
Yeah.
That song was actually supposed to be performed by Elvis, but he turned it down.
Oh yeah, that's right. Golden Years he was supposed to do. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yep, that was supposed to be. He turned it down.
Well, in those days, Colonel Parker was very influential in Elvis's career because he had Colonel Tom Parker, and then Elvis did a song that was part of, America Was Growing. He talked about, a kid being shot in the ghetto, and he did a song that no one would play it. All the stations would not play that song.
Right.
It was about a kid that would go out in Chicago and get shot. You know about the ghetto? The song called, In the Ghetto. He played it. White station, what we called then, it was like the racial disharmony in America. They would play his music.
Right.
Because they said...
It was an amazing song. I remember the first time it came on the radio, and I just went, what the heck?
Yeah.
I mean, because that song was later on in his career, and it was just amazing. It was all over the radio.
Yeah, and then, what happened was, initially, people from the South said, what are you singing this song for? You can't relate. Chicago.
Right.
You should do a rap song about Elvis one of these days. See, there hasn't been a song with a rap song.
Right there.
Yeah, we're going to get you Elvis. Anyway, we got a wonderful artist we're going to introduce in a minute. And lastly about Elvis, what I want to mention people is that in 56, Elvis made his film debut in Love Me Tender, and his first song, by the way, released was Heartbreak Hotel. That was his first hit song, 1956. So now you know how Elvis got to be 80 from the time period. That's. Then he went in the military in 58, where he met Priscilla Presley, who he married, and then he wrote songs about them splitting up. And then, believe it or not, I can't believe when Elvis died. I'll never forget. It was the news report said the king has died. And I go, what did they? Because Martin Luther King.
Right.
I thought of when he died in '68. I go, what other king? It was Elvis Presley.
Ah.
And they had the first thing they had on radio was when they said Elvis, the king of rock and roll, died. And do you remember? You seem like a younger guy than me, but I remember when Peter Jennings on ABC broke the news, and America, and it was unbelievable about Elvis because. It
was all over, and he was probably the only citizen when he died that all flags were flown at half staff.
Yeah, and all the states. And by the way, you probably know about this, but Elvis, the new Elvis stamp is coming out. Brand new stamp on Elvis for 80th birthday.
Oh yeah.
He's the only few artists. James Brown is going to have one this year,
yeah.
and Elvis. So. Very interesting, and what's really interesting is that when he died of a heart attack, and he had almost like it was like in those days aortic, like John Ritter. He died. It was just too young. He was 42 years old when he died. So amazing,
way too young.
Anyway, what I was going to tell you is one of the last thing I was going to about Elvis. So now you're from the Bay Area. You picked Elvis, and Elvis used to like to play up he played in Candlestick, the old Candlestick.
Yep.
So now I was going to ask you, what do you think if you had to name a few words of Elvis's life? What would you say?
If I had to say a few things about Elvis's life,
yeah, about his life. What would you say?
I would say he was very blessed.
Yeah.
I would say he was very blessed, and I think that above all the turmoil of his death and all the controversy, I think that he lived a very blessed life, and he was loved by everybody.
And you know what's interesting? Elvis' son-in-law was Michael Jackson. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson wanted to, it was too bad. It was too bad that the marriage didn't work, but, Michael Jackson made music like, in those days, phenomenal. So anyway, we're going to get your music, but Rick, we appreciate you coming on and talking about Elvis, and we're going to get your music in. We're trying to get everybody. Everyone's calling us, as you can imagine, so we're trying to get all the calls. But thank you so much, my friend.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much. And by the way, how can people book your shows? How can they book your live show? Real quick, just got your phone number.
If they want to book me for a show, all they got to do is Google Elvis impersonator Rick Torres. I've got quite a few websites out there. They can go to Bay Area Elvis Tributes.
Right.
They can go to Bay Area Elvis Singing Telegrams or KCElvisWeddings.com.
Okay, great. Anyway, just wanted to let people know about that. Thank you so much for appearing.
Thank you very much. Happy birthday, Elvis. Thank you very much.
We'll get you back next year. We'll talk Elvis too. Thanks so much.
And blue Hawaii, the night is heavenly, and you are heaven to me. Lovely you and blue Hawaii, with all this loveliness that should be yours. Come with me while the moon is on the sea. The moon is on the sea, and mine could all come true. This magic night of nights with you. Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. You have made my life complete, and I love you so. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. I said it's gonna set my soul on fire. Got a whole lot of money, that's a rare gift, so get those things up higher. There's 1,000 pretty women waiting out there. They're all living in the devil may care. Now I'm just a devil waiting through the spare. Viva Las Vegas! Viva Las Vegas! Viva Las Vegas! Viva, Viva Las Vegas!
Hello, this is Cameron. How are you?
Hello, Cameron. I'm fine. How about you down there?
Doing good, man. It was nice today out here. Actually, it was really nice. So
Where-
now tell us about yourself and how you knew Elvis.
I'm up here in Napa, and I knew Elvis in 1956 when we were both young.
Oh, right.
He had his 80th yesterday,
Right.
and I'll be having my 80th in August of this year.
Wow, we're gonna give you a clap on that one. 80 years old,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
That's
80 years
phenomenal.
young,
So
and
what do you
he's
remember
been the love
about
of my
Elvis?
life all my life. I wrote a story on the Elvis I loved, which I share with everybody to this day. And how I actually met him was I was just a fan, and he was staying at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and I lived in Beverly Hills, and I told my girlfriend, I said, I'm going to meet him. So I said to her one night late, let's just go up to the hotel. And this is, I think, the cute part of the story, was a true story. We didn't want to go all the way up because they know we were after Elvis, right?
Right.
So we went to a lower room, walked up the last 2 stairs, and as we walked down the hall, there was these guys with sideburns. And in those days, there was only a few from Memphis that had sideburns.
Right, that's right.
And they say, you going to Elle's party? And I said, yeah. And, of course, we were young, curvy, and so forth. We walked right in.
See, in those days, they didn't have the bouncers, you know? They had bouncers.
No security or anything. And from that became a friendship for almost 2 years. Wow. Every time that all the guys came, they would call us ahead that they were coming. And Jenny and I, my girlfriend and I, were able to go down to the L.A. train station. At that time, Elvis would not fly. And so we'd meet him down there, go up to the hotel. There was always about 20 boys and girls, you know. He loved people around him. And I got to know him as a person, and he was a wonderful person, very humble guy. We'd sit talking in the hotel, and eventually, girls, are you listening?
Yeah, we got it. We got them all over the world, man. We got
okay.
Elvis.
Well, I got to have the wonderful night. We went down to a house in Malibu. All of them they were hot, so Elvis took the limo, and my girlfriend and I took the car, and we went down. And I was walking on the beach, and all of a sudden, somebody whipped me up, turned me around, and it was Elvis. He says, "Hey, Bet." He called me Bet.
Yeah.
You're gonna the waves are gonna get you, and I was in his arms. So there we were. He carried me. I was light then. He carried me up the stairs, and there was no booze around. All soda pop and everybody laughing and having a good time. And then he walked in the house. This was I don't know if you remember Russ Tablin.
Yeah, Russ Tablin was in. He did West Side Story. He was an actor.
Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
And his daughter's in.
And his daughter's been in recently.
Yeah, she's been in a series.
Yeah. And so we're walking in this little Malibu rental from Russ, and the only place Elvis had to be alone from all the others was in a bedroom. So you can imagine my heart was going, well, it was nothing like...
Well, you had Elvis in the bedroom.
Yes, I got to kiss him. And girls, he was a good kisser.
All right.
So...
See, we're hearing that live on LA Talk Radio.
That was it. Yeah.
Now, did you ever keep in contact with Elvis after that?
Yes, I did. Well, actually, I stayed in contact with George Klein, if you know who he is.
Yeah, George Klein does the show on XM.
Yeah, he's the DJ still going on in Memphis. The last I heard, I talked to him by email just a couple of years ago, and he was still. He's on the the satellite program.
Yeah, XM Radio.
Yeah. And he remembered me, believe it or not, because, Elvis knew a lot of ladies. And one thing I say about Elvis, he was not a womanizer. He was very respectful. And when I met his girlfriend at that time, Anita Wood, when she came out to the Beverly Hills to see him, I thought they were going to get married. I mean, I thought that was it. Well, it turns out later in history, he had written her a letter from Germany before Priscilla that was a proposal, and that letter sold for $7,000.
Wow!
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
That's one expensive letter.
I know, right?
Yeah, for $7,000.
And so I just had just to bring you up, Cameron, to today. He's always been a part of my life. My family's always giving me things with Elvis and everything, and I knew him when he was. Just a country boy is the way I described it in my my story. But now I'm having the pleasure of being involved again because over the years I've looked at a lot of people that do Elvis, and in the last few years, I've been working with Elvis festivals, and more recently with Rick Torres, which to me is one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And we're planning a fundraiser for seniors here in Napa on Valentine's Day.
Oh, how nice.
And it's just so much fun to be involved again. I was a dancer, a professional dancer, after I knew Elvis, and so I love to be on stage and or involved. So I'm excited about this. I hope that we get a lot of support on the show. It's going to be on Valentine's Day, as I said, right here in Napa, and he's doing the Burning Love tour.
Oh, yeah. Burning Love, I was going to mention, you know who's re-releasing it? Who's going to re-release it as a song? You know, there are a couple of rock artists that's doing it, and also rhythm and blues. They're going to re-release Burning Love.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny, every time I have Elvis on in my car constantly, and it seems like every time I get in it now that we're doing this show, that's the song that comes up. But my very favorite, and Rick knows this because he's sung it to me, is what's the one that I can't think about it, that The Wonder View.
Oh, yeah, the Wonder View.
Wasn't a big one, but it's a beautiful song, beautiful lyrics. And I even kid with Rick, when I've seen many of his shows, I said, you even walk backwards like him.
Oh, really? That's funny. That's funny.
And so we've had a friendship and enjoy every moment of his shows. And so, you know, even at my age, you can still be a fan.
Well, you know what? It's good that you have the memories of Elvis, and you know, and the thing is, you knew Elvis before he got into all these different things.
Yeah, the troubles but see, I knew him. He was so humble and such a nice guy. One little story I'll tell you is when we were sitting around the hotel one night, one of his cousins, Junior, looked across, and Elvis was sitting next to me, and he says, "Hey, El, how did you get to be where you are?" And he just looked back and he says, "You know, Junior, if I knew how I got here, I would tell you, because there's a lot of room up here for others." And that's exactly what he was like.
Very interesting.
You know?
Well, you know, it's interesting that Elvis was an influence of all the different music. In fact, you know, from James Brown to many folks out there, you know, that have done a lot of R&B. You know, they said they listened to Elvis. In fact, Paul McCartney was on a show and said Elvis influenced his career. And John, that's what they said, because if it wasn't for Elvis, there would be no Beatles. You know, true. And that was the truth.
Yeah, we did a Beatles show up here too. You know, a tribute artist show.
Nice.
But yeah, well, he touched so many people's lives, and. You know, I never married. People kid with me, you know, well, I couldn't get Elvis, so...
Why get married? There you go, see? You didn't want to get married.
Yeah.
I
became a dancer, and I almost wanted... Well, the reason I did is I thought maybe that I could hitch up with Bob Hope and go to Germany, because that's where he was. I even knit Elvis a sweater before he left for Germany, and my girlfriend and I got a cake, and we took it over to the hotel, and only to find out that Elvis had to go earlier, because this is when he was going in the service. Right. But the boys were there, so we had a party, but without Elvis, and that was sort of the last opportunity. Although I did have another opportunity to see him in concert when he came back, but. You know, by that time he was married, but I just know the guy, the heart he had, and that he loved his daughter, and he had a lot of stress too when he went on stage.
Right.
You know, you wouldn't think so, that he was, you know, very confident and everything, but he would get nervous every time he went on stage. We talk about it.
True. That is true. He still, even when he got older in the last days of Elvis, he said the same thing. Still nervous.
Yeah.
Performing.
Yeah,
that's
still.
what he said.
And it's because it meant so much to him. Mm-hmm. And of course, then unfortunately, the things that happened in his life with, pills. Now, I knew some people afterwards. The lady that took care of the baby, his housekeeper. I met all those people because we had parties afterwards, and even some of the ex-girlfriends. It was so sad, and I don't like to think of those days. And when he passed away was the day after my birthday.
Wow.
So, it's hard enough to remember the date, but not for me.
He died very young at 42, and
yes,
and I remember, like I was telling before you got on about when they broke the news bulletin of him dying. So it was very interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing a lot about Elvis. We'll have you next year. Hopefully, we'll get you in studio. Talk about Elvis.
Oh, great. Okay. I used to live down there, so
you kind of know.
Yeah.
But it was very
good talking to you, Cameron.
Nice talking to you, and thanks for sharing with us all the memories of Elvis. I appreciate it.
Well, we love him. We always will.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Night now.
Good night from Los Angeles.
You're listening to Sports and Life with Cameron Datsker, right here on LA Talk Radio.